I never thought I'd be the kind of man who'd have cops called on him in front of his own house. Yet there I was, standing on my gravel driveway, staring into flashing blue and red lights bouncing off my F-350, all because I told my neighbor one simple truth. I am not in your damn HOA. And the craziest part, a few weeks later, I would end up owning the land underneath the very people trying to run me out. My name's Garrett McKenzie, 45, fresh off a divorce that took half my savings and pretty much all my optimism. I left Atlanta with whatever fit in my truck, drove north toward Tennessee, and ended up at my grandfather's old farmhouse in Millbrook. The place hadn't had a heartbeat in 5 years. Peeling paint-sagging porch barn smelling like motor oil and memories. But it was mine. 2.5 acres of family land, quiet, simple, honest. What I didn't know was that while I was rebuilding my life, someone else had built a whole kingdom next door, Willowbrook Estates. 200 identical McMansions lined up like big white dominoes, each with perfect lawns, perfect driveways, perfect people who probably iron their socks. And at the center of this suburban universe was the Queen herself, Delilah Thornfield. HOA president, self-appointed guardian of community standards, and apparently allergic to anything that looks like real life. I met her the very first morning after I moved in. I was unloading my equipment trailer when I heard the click-click of heels on gravel. I turned around and there she was. Blonde helmet hair, floral dress that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment, and a perfume cloud strong enough to put a man into early retirement. "Welcome to Willowbrook," she chirped, handing me a 50-page packet like she was giving me the 10 Commandments. "I'm Delilah, your HOA president." I told her politely, "Ma'am, my property isn't in your HOA." Her smile twitched like she just swallowed a lemon. "Oh, but everyone in this area maintains our standards." I looked at her manicured finger pointing at my barn, my truck, my dog. Rusty and I felt my jaw tighten. "And if I don't?" I asked. She slid on her politician smile. "My husband's on the city council. We have relationships. I'm sure we can find a way to motivate cooperation." She turned, clicked back to her white Mercedes with HOA boss on the license plate, and left me standing there with the faint smell of threats lingering in the air. 3 days later she came back with reinforcements. A county inspector sweating through his shirt, flipping through papers as Delilah filmed everything like she was hosting her own crime documentary. She accused me of running a commercial business, storing hazardous waste, polluting the ground, owning illegal vehicles, you name it. For 40 minutes, she hovered behind the inspector like a vulture waiting for a carcass. Only problem for her. My property was zoned agricultural residential, which meant every single thing she complained about was allowed. The inspector read the zoning code, frowned at her, and said, "Ma'am, he's in full compliance." Then he practically sprinted to his truck. Delilah stood there stunned, one hand clutching her phone, the other clutching her pearls. But I saw something flicker in her eyes. That look a kid gets when you take away her favorite toy. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was when she switched from annoyance to full-blown warfare. Within a week, cops were showing up at my property like rotating Uber drivers. Suspicious chemical smells, drug manufacturing, aggressive dog, noise complaints during legal hours, suspicious traffic. My favorite one was the child endangerment call because apparently Rusty wagged his tail too hard near a toddler. Officer Martinez, the poor guy sent every time, looked at me one afternoon and whispered, "Off the record. Someone's using us like a personal harassment squad. Document everything. And get a lawyer if you can." That night I sat in my barn, sweating in the summer heat, staring at the concrete floor, and I felt something I hadn't felt since my divorce. Defeated. I genuinely wondered if I was the problem. Maybe I should have just stayed quiet. Maybe fixing up the farm, running my repair shop, trying to rebuild my life, it was too much. Maybe leaving Atlanta didn't mean leaving chaos. I actually put down my wrench, walked outside, looked at my rundown house and overgrown yard and said out loud, maybe I should just sell the damn place. And that hurt, because this land meant something. But the next morning, everything changed. A surveyor I hired showed up to verify my boundary lines, since Delilah had been measuring things like a deranged cartographer, and he found something unbelievable. Her decorative fence, 3 feet onto my land. Her garden shed, sitting entirely on my property. Her prize roses, growing right out of my dirt. The guy showed me the map, and I swear I felt the universe give me a little wink. That evening I sent Delilah a polite certified letter demanding she remove all encroachments within 30 days. The next morning she was on her lawn screaming into her phone like someone told her Starbucks ran out of foam. But then she tried something even better. She walked to my door, jaw clenched so hard it could have cracked a walnut, and held out a check. "Mr. Mackenzie," she said through a tight smile, "perhaps we can reach an accommodation. $15,000 for a small easement." I kept my expression neutral, even though my shirt pocket was recording every word. "And if I don't accept?" "Oh well. Boundary disputes can drag on for years. Court costs, attorney fees. My husband has relationships in the legal community. Cases like this become very expensive for the unprepared." That was the moment she screwed up. Because that wasn't an offer, that was extortion. And I had it all on tape. Around this time, neighbors started coming out of the woodwork people Delilah had harassed for years. The Johnsons, an elderly black couple who'd been forced to tear up their vegetable garden. Jake Morrison, a veteran whose motorcycle she declared a public disturbance. Families fined for mailbox colors or parking in their own driveway. Everyone had a story. And the more they talked, the more a pattern emerged. Delilah targeted anyone who didn't fit her perfect suburban vision. I wasn't being singled out, I was just next in line. Then came the twist I never saw coming. My lawyer Sarah dug into the property records to help with my boundary case and discovered that decades ago my great-grandfather sold off land parcels, but never transferred the mineral rights, which in Tennessee means everything under 6 feet of soil foundations, basements, septic, utilities. All of Willowbrook Estate's 127 homes sat on subsurface land my family technically still owned. And guess who fast-tracked that faulty development without proper title checks? Bradley, Delilah's husband, the city councilman. Suddenly everything clicked. The harassment, the inspections, the cops, the lawsuits. They were trying to scare me off before I uncovered the truth. But it was too late. We filed a quiet title action. Every homeowner got a certified letter informing them their property rights might be in dispute. Understandably, people panicked, and the Willowbrook HOA called an emergency meeting. That night, the community clubhouse was packed wall to wall, 200 angry residents, 3 news cameras, neighbors whispering, sweating, pacing. And at the front of the room, standing stiff behind a podium, was Delilah. She started strong voice, shaking with righteous fury, talking about a troublesome neighbor spreading misinformation, property values, dropping 15%, a threat to community harmony. Bradley even strutted up beside her, smiling like a man who'd never been wrong in his life. They painted me as a criminal, a scammer, a troublemaker. Then I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just walked to the front with my folder of documents and set them down where everyone and every news camera could see. The survey proving the encroachments. The geological maps proving subsurface rights. The permit records showing fraudulent approvals. And finally, the recording. Bradley's voice echoed across the speakers. County government has a very long memory for troublemakers. Inspections become more frequent. Permits get delayed. Gasps rippled across the room. Delilah went pale. Bradley's smile fell apart. Neighbors started shouting. "You extorted him. You lied about the property values. You used the police against him. What else are you hiding?" The county commissioner, who had been sitting quietly in the front row, stood up, face white as printer paper. "Mr. Thornfield," he said slowly, "we'll need to speak after this meeting." Delilah's hands were shaking so hard she dropped her notes. Bradley tried to defend himself, but the crowd drowned him out. People he'd known for years looked at him like a stranger. And me, I just stepped back and watched the house of cards collapse. That's where the story ends. Not with handcuffs, not with cheering, not with me getting a parade down Main Street. Just Delilah, HOA Queen of Willowbrook, sitting alone at a folding table, mascara streaking down her cheeks, realizing the entire room, her kingdom, had turned its back on her. Realizing the power she weaponized for years had finally slipped out of her hands. Realizing that sometimes when you push the wrong person, they push back. And if there's one thing I learned from all this, it's simple. Bullies don't fear strength, they fear truth. And once the truth shows up, there's nowhere left for them to hide.